Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to DTU. My name is Tim McAloon, and I'm Professor of Sustainable Product Service Systems here at DTU Mechanical Engineering. And it's a pleasure to welcome you all this afternoon to our CIRCit Tools Tryout Workshop. It's the last in a series of 5 winter workshops we've been holding in the Nordic region. Welcome to the Skylab, and thank you to the Skylab. The Skylab, for those of you who do not know, is the students' innovation space, and sometimes they let the oldies borrow it, and they're letting us borrow it this afternoon for this workshop. And basically, the space here is an innovation space where the students can have some of their lectures, but mostly to create new innovations and new actual businesses, spin-out businesses, and to do all their innovation activities and make their science actually become something in society. So explore the Skylab. Christina's here from the Skylab as well, and I know that it's free to walk around and have a look in the breaks and enjoy the space. So this afternoon we're going to be, as I said, looking at the last of the 5 workshops we've held over the winter period. And this one is to, like the other 4, is to try out some of the tools and methods that we're developing on the CIRCit project. And the CIRCit project is a Nordic project which is funded by the Nordic Green Growth Initiative. And that's basically an initiative which is supported by Nordforsk, the research agency, Nordic Innovation, and Nordic Energy Research. So it's 3 agencies which have come together to fund actually just 6 projects in the Nordic region, and we're proud to have one of those projects. So we have an action-packed afternoon for you this afternoon. You think you're nice and comfortable, but you're going to be moving around a little bit, and you're going to be voting with your feet and going for different workshop activities, but we'll tell you more about that a little bit later. So after my introduction, we're going to hear from one of our participating companies, and we're really pleased to have Øyvind from Vestra. Øyvind is the head of strategy and sustainability at Vestra, which is a Norwegian outdoor furniture company. More about that later and about their drive for circular economy. We thought it's interesting and important for us to have some of our partners show what their drive and what their hopes for the project are as well. And then we're going to do 2 rounds of tryout workshop activities. So the idea is that we're going to break up, and there'll be 2 rounds of 3 table activities to show the 6 work packages of the CIRCit project. So the first one is looking at sustainability, digitalization, and circular product design. And we'll spend about an hour on that and another break. After that, we're going to do a tools tryout for business models, closing the loop, and value chain. And then we're going to get back together. And we're actually going to get back together in the foyer outside, because this is going to be used again for another innovation activity this evening. And we'll have a share out and a glass of wine at the end of the afternoon. So I think that sounds like a nice way of spending an afternoon together, don't you? I know that 95% of you have heard what the circular economy is, but just so that we all get on the same level as each other, I just want to spend a couple of slides on what our understanding and how we're using the circular economy understanding for our project here. So as you know, there's a linear economy model where we've been following the last many decades or even centuries, this so-called take, make, consume, dispose way of seeing industry and seeing the resources we have on hand. This has been reported to have a high material use intensity, but also significant business risks for materials which are becoming scarce, or liability issues that may actually arise along products' life cycles. So you can imagine the circular economy is an opposite alternative to that, and the idea here is that we're thinking in closed loop systems and not open loops, not just linear thinking, but closing the loops. And the main aim here is to decouple value creation from resource consumption. So how can we get as much value as possible out of the resources that we're actually taking out of the earth but making into products, and how do we get those products to remain within the system and society as much as possible and as long as possible? The Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which is one of the biggest proponents of the circular economy movement, together with McKinsey, did a report and did a study a couple of years ago, and they estimated that the new business opportunities in Europe alone are around about 1.8 trillion euro per year in Europe alone. So even if you're not an environmentalist and you're thinking about the business, here's an opportunity for you today. So Ellen MacArthur Foundation, they defined circular economy as an economy which provides multiple value creation mechanisms which are decoupled from consumption of finite resources. So what does that mean for our project, and how are we bringing that onto the project here? As I mentioned before, the Nordic Green Growth Initiative is a research and innovation initiative funded by these agencies in the Nordic region, and basically have funded our project, where in our application we said that we intend to conceptualize, develop and implement a set of tools and approaches that will enable the Nordic industry to accelerate the transition towards a sustainable society by means of the circular economy. So we see the circular economy movement as a means to achieving greater sustainability in society. And you can see here we're going to pick out these different areas here, but basically we're looking at the whole life cycle of products and value chains, and all of these different keywords you see on the picture here are basically depicting the 6 work packages we have on the project. Here they are. So we have basically, starting from the left, circular business models. How do we actually develop new circular business models? So the models which are going to transform the way in which we see value creation for our customers. Then, if we've got the business models in place, what about the products? How can we design and develop products which are actually fit to recirculate, designed for disassembly, designed for reuse, designed for remanufacture, and so forth? Then we have a work package looking at circular intelligent assets. So can digitalization help us on the way and provide more value? We have a whole work package focusing on that. We have one looking at closing the product cycle. So one is to design the good product, design and develop the circular product. But the other one is, what do we do with all the installed base we have out there at the moment? How do we get that back and reuse that? Number 5 is circular value chains. What's the potential that lies in your own value chain? Maybe to achieve the business models, maybe to close the product cycle, maybe to look at how we can use circular intelligent assets in a different way by sharing knowledge. So that's a work package in itself. And then last but not least, it's actually work package 1, sustainability screening. Are all of these things we're trying to do here, are they actually more or less sustainable? And not just measuring at the end of the product development process or the business model development process, but actually upfront, how can we choose the right indicators, so-called leading indicators, to make sure we're doing the right thing all the time as we're developing the business models and the products. So they're the 6 work packages of the CIRCit project. And the way in which the project is actually running is the following. We have collaborations between research and industry, and that's why you're here today, and you're very welcome. We have, our aim is to provide tools and frameworks for circular economy, which we iteratively design. And we have 2 main levels of collaboration with companies, and I'll show you some of the companies in a second. One is companies which were in a very close collaboration in actually developing the methods and tools. And of course, they get to affect the way in which the methods and tools are being developed, but also they get the results first. And then we have a second round of companies, which are companies who would like to try out the tools and give us some feedback on those. That's what today's about, is about trying out some of the tools, but we actually have a couple of spaces left on some of the other tier collaboration as well, but more about that later. So what the idea is that we give access to knowledge and experience, and in return we get validation and feedback from you about the products, the methods and the tools that we're developing together with you. Just to give you a show-off slide of who we are, it's not a small project. We're covering all 5 of the Nordic countries, which we're really proud about. It's actually the only project in this program which has all 5 countries covered. We have our friends and colleagues from RISE, Research Industry Institute of Sweden, in Gothenburg and Stockholm. We have Technology Industries of Finland in Helsinki. We have NTNU, the sister university for DTU, up in Trondheim, but also in Oslo in Norway. We have the Innovation Center Iceland in Reykjavik, and then we have ourselves at DTU and DTU is the project lead and the administrator of the project. So you'll see some of these faces around the room today, and indeed you'll see many of them helping us to facilitate the afternoon as well. The way in which we're involving the companies is we've tried at least to see, can we fit as many of these different sectors as possible and to pair them as much together. So built environments and furniture all the way down to textile and fashion. So if you're from a production company, maybe you can find yourself in here, and if you can't, it doesn't matter, we'll fit you in somewhere in one way or other. The companies we have so far in our co-creation activities include Danelec Marine from Denmark, we have Kona Cranes from Finland, OP, Assura, Seco Tools, 3Temp, Platetech, Vestra, Little Lamb and Quadrat. So a number of companies already, and those companies we are in one way or other in a deep collaboration with, and the idea is that these companies collaborate with us by subscribing to at least 2 of those 6 work packages that I showed you before. So again, if you have it in the back of your mind, you may be interested, think about the work packages you're going to try out this afternoon. So we promised the project that we'd have 15 companies for co-creation, that we would deliver 50 companies for the validation. I think we're doing it, we're getting a long way to this afternoon for that part of it, and then general dissemination over 100 companies. That's our goals for the project. So I've spoken for long enough, and we have just enough time to actually be a workshop and everybody to speak. We have 10 seconds in the room, and I'm going to start with you, so prepare. Very quickly, stand up, name, organization, position, and we'll just go around the room like that. After you.
Grundfos making pumps. I'm a chief engineer.
Thank you. Welcome here.
Hi, I'm Tom Crawford from Dyson. I'm a global category director there for development products.
Thank you, Tom.
Jutta Hildenbrand, Research Institutes of Sweden. I'm a researcher and part of the project.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Siri Johnson. I'm an intern at the UNDP Private Sector Sustainable Development Goals project.
Thank you, Siri.
Hello, my name is Maria Kravchenko. I'm a PhD researcher at DTU here, and I'm a part of the CIRCit project working on sustainability screening tools.
Thank you, Maria.
Hello, my name is Toke. I work for Dyson as well as a design engineer, new product innovation.
Welcome back to Denmark, Tore. One.
Yeah. So I'm Morten. I'm from Oslo. We are in Høgh, and I select materials for hearing aids.
Hi, Rita here, former part of the research group and now independent consultant.
My name is Christopher. I'm the co-founder of Naboskab, a small Danish consultancy helping municipalities and business with circular business models and transitioning to more sustainable solutions.
Hi, Marie Nilsson. I'm an industrial designer and founder of Ozone Strategy and Design in Sweden, Helsingborg.
Welcome here.
Hi, I'm Marina Fioroni, here from DTU, working on CIRCit project with particular business models.
Hi, I am Lorenzo Maccioni. I am a PhD guest here in DTU. I came from Italy, in the University of Bolzano, and I'm enrolled in a PhD program Sustainable Energy and Technologies.
Hi, I'm Jakob Felix. I'm a processing designer, and I represent industrial design agency in Aarhus of Trepart. And also I'm representative of the Danish Design Association, Design Denmark, where we start up a new sustainable network.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Matt Sockart. I'm a senior executive officer at the corporate DTU. I've been in technology foresight projects at TB2 level.
I'm Emily Huck, and I work at the
Thank you. Guess it's your turn. Yeah.
I'm a researcher at RISE, the Swedish partner of the project.
My name is Carla Brunsen. I'm a postdoc researcher here at DTU and I'm working on circular I'm Helle Stenningsen from Dansk Kulturfond, the Danish refund and return system for one-way packaging. I'm head of environment.
Hi, I'm Sandra Fernandes. I'm from University of São Paulo in Brazil,
and I'm visiting PhD research here in the field as part of the research group.
Let's go back to, you first, Sarah, and then
Hi, my name is Sarah Shafi. I'm postdoctoral researcher at TTU, and I'm not working on circular economy. My focus is on digitalization and automation with a specific focus on product configuration systems.
Hello, I'm Samuel from Larsen. I educate engineers at DTU in Ballerup, and those engineers all desperately need more information about what the circular economy is.
I'm Birgitte Christensen from the Danish Technological Institute. We work with materials and technology to help guide Danish companies into the circular economy.
I'm Morten Gyldendal. I'm from the Danish company Beyond Rational, and I'm responsible for business development.
Yeah, my name is Rasmus. I'm also from the startup Beyond Rational, and I'm working within innovation and marketing.
Hi, I'm Christian Hoff. I'm from CIR Market Technologies and Sandy Membranes, and I'm in charge of research and development.
I'm Louisa Bisgaard, and I'm cast the code, but I'm from Grundfos as well, and I'm an environment engineer.
I'm Janus Kirkeby from Coloplast, medical device company. I'm an environmental advisor.
Hi everyone, I'm Mads from Bang & Olufsen, premium audio and visual equipment. We have been doing long-lasting products for many years, and now we want to do more in circular design principles also going forward. I'm a global product manager, so we think that sustainability needs to be at the business part of the company.
Thanks, Mads.
My name is Nina Jensen. I'm a project manager at Symbiosis Center Denmark in Kalundborg, doing projects on industrial symbiosis and circular economy.
Hi, my name is Lili Lillund. I'm a consultant and a consult.
Hi, my name is Christine Mopper. I work here at DTU Skylab, and I work with all kinds of innovation workshops and sprints, bringing companies in collaboration with students. And I'm very excited about looking into this workshop. And I've been part of Tim's research group previously.
Hi, I'm Anna, and I'm a master student in design and animation, and I'm doing my master thesis within Marina's development on new business models, looking at the user-driven perspectives.
Hi, I'm Øyvind Bjørnstad. I come from the company called Vestre, which you'll hear a little bit about later, and I work with strategy and sustainability.
Hi, my name is Jingyue Li. I'm an associate professor at the Department of Computer Science at NTU. I'm leading the work package for digitalization.
And I'm the associate professor here at DTU, also within the CIRCit project, work with circular economy, sustainable design, and product service systems. And I want to continue the program by introducing Øyvind. So the next part of our presentation is going to be an introduction to how one of the companies we are working together with is currently implementing circular economy and how the interaction with the different work packages is doing. He's just working on work package 2, business models now, but he will tell more about the plans afterwards. Thank you so much for coming, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, we just came from another room up here earlier, actually, with Marina. So it's definitely a full day. Yeah, it's working. First of all, thank you to CIRCit and the good people here at DTU for inviting us. It's great to be here and to tell a little bit about how we look at sustainability and circular economy. Everything is possible for our Lord and a mechanic. That was the motto of the founder of this company some 70 years ago in Haugesund in west coast of Norway, right after war. Starting to build a small mechanic workshop to produce urban furniture and a lot of other stuff. As we see from this photo, which some of you recognize is Times Square, it was possible for that guy. And we are standing there today, which I think is a testament that some solid furniture can go a long way. What we like to say is that it's possible to choose sustainability. We firmly believe that we are now at a small space in time where it's possible to take leadership in terms of sustainability, and actually also to capitalize on it. We believe that in some years it's going to be more of a hygiene factor, and it's not going to be possible to take position the same way it is now. And we also see that I come from a financial background, and I was a business controller in this company. And we see that it's not until you merge finance and sustainability that you can actually have the power behind it to push through, also in the leadership groups, also with the shareholders. We are lucky because we have the ownership is private, and it's very concentrated, and also behind this sustainability agenda. But for many public companies it's a whole different situation. So then you need to look at how you can merge the finance and the sustainability parts. All right, we're going to go down memory lane a little bit here. Some of you might recognize the guy on the left. It's called Milton Friedman. He's a Nobel Prize-winning economist. He's American. He's quite famous for a chronicle he wrote in the New York Times in 1970, stating that the only corporate responsibility of a business is to make profits. Anyone who tells you otherwise is a puppet of the intellectual elite who wants to destabilize the free society. And unfortunately, that has been the paradigm in business for some 40 years. And we see we currently stand at a verge of some problems that might make us think twice about this. So from us in 2019, it's really not possible to continue like Milton Friedman would have us. And therefore, at Vestre, we have incorporated 9 out of the 17 sustainability goals into our corporate strategy, into our business philosophy. A lot of them were already aligned with what we were doing, but this certainly has given us a clear direction in terms of where to go going forward. And our goal now is actually to be recognized as the most sustainable urban furniture producer in the world. And you might say that urban furniture is quite a small business, but still it's still quite an ambitious goal at that. And we know that we are quite a small business. It's quite a small industry. We're going to need help from a lot of other industries if things are actually going to change. But we believe that nobody can do everything, but everyone can do a little bit. Everyone can do their part. And actually, if we look at Norwegian companies' profits in 2016, that's a couple of years ago, it was in total some 400 billion NOK. And if everyone gave 10% of that profit to help solve the sustainability goals, it would still be 6 billion more than the entire aid budget of Norway that year. And okay, maybe 10% is way too much. Maybe 1% is more fitting. Then okay, that would still be more than the entire Norwegian budget for education that year. So at Vestre, we have decided to give 10% of our profits to external external sustainability partners and to try to solve these goals that we have focused on. I know Milton Friedman will be turning in his grave, but we still did it. And I will now go through a few examples that might inspire you and help you to think about how you can continue this journey. First of all, we know that we need to get people into the good education. We have, of course, trainees at our factory in Torsby, Sweden, the heart of Scandinavia, where they learn to weld and all this. But we know that in other places, people have much larger issues with even going to school. So we're collaborating with UNICEF to give 3,500 children school places every year. Sometimes it's not easy for us to go and do everything ourselves. Then we see, okay, someone else can use the money better, but we still need to donate that money. Of course, we demand 100% renewable energy from our entire supply chain, and we have now started a project to completely be self-sufficient by 2025. We want to give 20% back, sell 20% back to the grid. We have currently this factory in Torsby with some 800 square meters of solar panels. Okay, it's 20% of the entire consumption for a year. It's about 100 megawatts, but still, on a good sunny day, it powers the entire factory. And we will also enforce this and try to push it down the value chain to our suppliers, our entire value chain, and try to implement the same standards for them. All right. And we know that the grandfather of the current CEO, when he started it, he had only this motto of everyone can, like the mechanic can do anything, and we know that it's the same for these guys in some conflict areas where we see that aid given from the West, it's not working. It's you feel humiliated when someone gives you something. It means that they are above you. But if you give them microloans, then they can actually pay back and they can have the dignity as well. So hopefully we can see some small startups in conflict areas that can hopefully not be competitors, but at least provide some good furniture going forward. Okay, it had to be a Tesla, right? We need to demand technology. We need to set the demand for the right technology, and one of our main emitters is transport. So how do we solve this? Well, we thought one thing we can do is actually to fully electrify the internal transport. And we were one of the early companies to order the Tesla Semi in Norway. And we didn't really know how we're going to use it yet. But we knew that we had a partner that did the internal transport, and he was a bit shocked when he found out this, but I think we'll get him along by the time it comes, because they're usually a few years late on their promises. So it's but the thing is to demand the completely emission-free transport, and we will continue to push this also. With our customer, the external transport that goes to the customers, because that's also a massive part of our emissions. Which brings us to the next one. This is actually 50% of our emissions, but okay, steel is 7% of the world's total carbon emissions. So We choose, we need to use steel in our furniture, and it's quite a specific silicium grade to take the hot dip galvanizing. I lost you there, I saw that. But okay, we choose the Scandinavian steel because it's 30% lower emission than the average. So we have also placed the first order for hybrid, which is completely carbon-free, emission-free steel that is going to be produced by at least 2045 by SSAB, Vattenfall, and one other company that I forget. But the important thing is that it's a value choice. We could also buy from China. We could probably get cheaper steel elsewhere, but we need to encourage those that actually take the steps. So we choose Scandinavian steel. And then we come back to the education bit and actually seeing when it's not time to do it yourself. Sometimes it's a lot better to donate to the people who know what to do with the money. And we know that Doctors Without Borders, they are doing some really great stuff all around the world. And we probably couldn't have designed a better operating table or anything like that. Sometimes it's better just to give to those who can use it. So this operating theater that we financed, it can actually help 700 patients each year. And then we have something that's really close to heart for us at Vestre. We have two megatrends that's really working for us. By 2050, there will be 70% of us living in city centers. And we also see that more and more people choose to stay in the city for their entire lives. We need to have more livable cities, and that means more greener cities. So this is really something we are working with every day, and our whole business idea is around making social meeting places and having people come out and get some of that village community back into the cities we have today. And together with other partners, we also need to look at new developments, such as how do we treat surface water. It's a massive challenge for landscape architects these years, and also how do we use modularity and flexibility to actually make spaces, make it possible to do more things in a tighter space. And okay, so we also need to, or we're also offsetting our carbon, which is probably a debatable how much effect it has, but at least it has some effect, even though the quota prices are way too low. But we're helping some projects in this is from Colombia, where they're taking the methane out of a landfill. Methane is obviously a very potent gas, as you know, and we're currently working with some cook stoves in Ghana to offset our carbon. But again, it's something that we're not directly doing, but at the same time, you need to choose between which ones you can directly affect and which one indirectly. So this goal number 15, life on land, we have currently we're using wood in almost all our products, and we're using 95% Nordic pine, which is a bit harder than the European pine, and it's really a great material, and it's probably from the most sustainable forestry in the world. But it still needs to be treated with linseed oil and impregnation. And okay, so we we have it certified by the Nordic Swan today, but we still need to work to find a way to get the copper out of the impregnation, because it's still not completely good for the environment. And also here we have taken a value choice not to use the tropical timber. Instead you have different alternatives like kebony and akoya, which are also made of pine, but treated in a way so they become even harder than teak and mahogany and those other woods. Yeah, and it's never possible to achieve these goals alone, especially for a small outdoor furniture producer. So we need to work with the right partners, and that's why I'm really glad we started the collaboration with CIRCit here. We're currently doing work package 2, which is circular business models. Just been finding like around 4 really interesting ideas with Marina that we're gonna continue working with, and then we're looking to join or to start the work package 3 to develop products that are even more circular, because our products are quite simple, so it's you can take them apart once they have an end of life and such, but we still need to look at how can products become even more circular. And we're already doing some testing on maintaining the furniture and how can we combine that with some social sustainability. And this is actually a collaboration we did with the Church Aid in Oslo. That froze there. Don't know exactly why. Anyway, so we worked with the Church Aid to do a pilot last summer to have them maintain, wash, clean the benches and change some wood slats, fix some screws at no cost for the customer, but we see definitely potential in that becoming a business model going forward. We're going to do another pilot in either Stockholm or Gothenburg this year, and I think we should just look at the video we made briefly.
Vi er vedlikeholdsteamet til Vestre. Dette prosjektet har blitt laget for å hjelpe folk tilbake i arbeidslivet. Vi vasker og oljer møblene sånn at de skal se pene ut igjen. Det er fint at ting tas vare på i stedet for at det bare kastes og kjøpes nytt. Og disse møblene har potensial for å holde veldig, veldig lenge med litt enkel vedlikehold.
And one thing that's interesting about these guys are actually guys with holes in their CVs, so they can't get a regular job. So how can we get people back into the workforce? We figure that a reference from a job or a project like this might help them to move back into a more sustained stay within the workforce. And when the grandfather of the current owner started this company, it was already with a lot of the circular aspects in mind, in terms of the use and throw society that we have today is something that we have never approved of and never will. the products are hot dip galvanized. It basically means you have a lifetime warranty against rust. You have 15 years on wood, you have 15 years on lacquer. Once a part goes bust, we can replace it. Sometimes not at a very good profit, but that's what CIRCit is also here to help us with. How do we do it smarter? But all in all, it's something about quality. I heard Bang Olufsen is also here today. It's another example of great quality producer. It's something about getting the customers, the end customers, to actually care about their stuff again. It may sound cliche, but that's basically what it is. Because today it's way too much of if it's broken or slightly, you have a hole in your sweater or something like that, it's going to be thrown away. But we have we usually have a saying that mending is better than ending, and that's I think that's it. Yeah.
It's very nice to see how a company is bringing together the SDGs and the circular economy, and it's actually possible to do that. Do we have any questions from the audience? We have time for a few questions. Yeah, two.
The amount of resources that the company is putting in terms of manpower, what is that? Is that 2 or 3 or 5 people, or is it 10 people, or is it the whole company that are doing small side pet projects? How is these ideas developed?
The ideas they could come from anyone, but it's currently I'm sitting on the project manager role of these projects. But some of them involve different parts of the business. Some of them are with external partners, obviously. But we're quite a lean organization, so we don't really have a big staff on this. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
Do Vista take back the products after
We currently that's what we're working on now to get the structure, back end structure up to make us able to do that. But currently we have some specific projects, like we have JC Decor, the big commercial giant. They had bought 200 litter bins from us in the 90s, and they were wondering if they could refurbish them. So we actually took them all back and gave them a shine up. So it's possible to do it for us now, but it's more on an ad hoc basis. But we are definitely looking into that as a potential business idea as well.
Any more questions? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Øyvind is staying here with us during the day as well, so you have the chance to talk to him during the breaks and during the exercises. Just before we get very active on the real workshops, I'd like to introduce to you what are the different strategies for implementing circular economy into companies. And this is basically where we start the CIRCit project. We knew we wanted to support the Nordic manufacturing industry to implement circular economy, but there were so many models out there. We, of course, started with the butterfly diagram from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, where you can basically see the technical cycle in blue, showing different strategies for keeping value of the product over the life cycle, such as maintenance, remanufacturing, or recycling. We also looked into the biological cycle, that is the green area, basically focused on composting and making sure that we keep and return the nutrients to Earth. But we also knew that there were many other models available. Fenna did this research showing so many different ways and so many different strategies out there for circular economy. And then what we also started to see is that, you remember the definition that Tim just mentioned to you. Circular economy, our main goal is to enhance value creation at the same time as we minimize resource consumption. So some people try to explain better how we could do it. And this is one of the most used models just now, trying to explain how we create value and how we degrade value, but also how we can keep it over time. So here you can see the traditional pre-use phase, where we have the so-called forward supply chain, and it's basically where we are adding value. For all of our suppliers, all the different processes that our products go through, from raw material extraction to finally having the final product ready. Then we of course have the use phase. That's where the product goes towards the consumer or the customer. And here it's where the main value of the product is actually extracted. That's where it's going to be delivering the function it was developed for. And then what happens in a linear economy today is that all of a sudden, all of this value goes to zero. We simply waste those products and we put it into either incineration or recycling to the best part of that. And then what happens here is that we really have value destruction. All of this value that we added throughout the supply chain get lost, and we cannot recover materials, we can barely recover energy. And the entire idea with the circular economy is to say, well, what if in the end of use phase we could recapture value? And the idea here is that there are many different strategies and many different ways of doing that. And that's basically what we did in the CIRCit project, was to say, let's take this overview, looking at the pre-manufacturing phase, the use phase, and the end of use phase, and try to understand what strategies are there for companies to keep the value as higher as possible as time goes by. And by doing that, to realize the 1.3 trillion euro a year potential that we have only in Europe. So what we did was to start structuring strategies, first from a raw material and sourcing point of view. What can we do in terms of, for instance, reusing recyclable materials or using non-toxic and lower impact materials? We also looked into the manufacturing phase. How can we do cleaner production or lean manufacturing to actually recover this waste during the production phase? We looked into the product use and operation. How can we design products that last as long as possible, that consume as little consumables as possible, and so on? Then we look into, of course, the end of use phases, and the big blue area, it's about how we can recirculate products. And the idea here is to go all the way from upgrading, repairing, and maintaining our products to remanufacturing or repurposing the products. Then if we cannot do that, we also need to, of course, look into recirculating materials, recycling, cascading materials, or recovering the energy that is within that. But we also want to show that we can be much more proactive if we talk about circular economy. Those are extremely important strategies, that's for sure. But we can also try to think our business in a different way. And that's the fourth dimension that we have in here in terms of rethinking and reconfiguring our business models. So how can we try to deliver more value to our customers over time with less resource consumption? Or even, how can we totally reinvent our business and try to deliver value in a complete different way? I know it's a lot to take, but the good news is that you'll be trying that out today in the different workshops from different point of views. from a value chain point of view, from a business model, a sustainability, and so on and so forth. But it's important for you to know the way that we use that. So the idea is to start working with companies and start understanding, what do you do today? And I know that many of those things are very familiar to you. You are doing them already. So we start identifying across the business areas in the organization, what are the strategies being implemented today as a first step. And then what we do as a second step is to say, okay, now what are the opportunities? What are the new things that your company could be doing to actually realize those different values and those different opportunities? And the idea here is to find a gap and to try to see what are the areas that can really bring business advantage to your organization, at the same time as contributing towards an enhanced sustainability performance. I know that you're thinking about your company now as I talk about those different strategies, but I want to propose something different. So from now onwards, you all work for a toothbrush manufacturer. And we all have the mission this afternoon to help them to become more circular from many different perspectives. This company, they have already been working with circular economy, as many of you, but they can also see a huge potential to move further into that direction. And they can see that from the 6 main areas that we look into the CIRCit project: business models, product design, digitalization and IoT, closing the loops, value chain, and sustainability assessment. And here you can see we have made an overall initial assessment of potential circular economy strategies for the toothbrush. We could say that they can probably use renewable materials. We could maybe use bio-based plastics, for example. They could also be looking into using ocean plastic. It's a new trend. I just saw in the Danish news yesterday there is a new chair made of 100% of ocean plastics. Could be a way to go. They could, of course, focus more into their manufacturing phase, looking into cleaner production and how they can potentially establish industrial symbiosis systems with the companies around them. They could be working with recycling pre-consumer waste in their facilities to try to understand how they can minimize waste inside, and plastic is also a good material for that, also the metals inside the toothbrush. They could also be developing that to last longer than it is today. We know that we can separate the head of the toothbrush and that we can reuse this part many times. But could we maybe do it better? Do we need to replace all of that all the time, or just the very small head on the top is enough? I don't know. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts about it. They could also try to develop that to use less energy during the lifetime. Today, it is basically batteries. Is that sustainable? Is that a good idea to be like that? Could we do it any better? They can also try to understand how we can use more of the body. Do we need to have one per person in our houses? Can we share that in hotels, for example, where we just change the head? What are the potential strategies for that? Then you can see it's all disassembled now, end of life, what to do. Can we refurbish this after 5, 6, 7 years of use? If yes, how do we take it back? And how do we actually design this to be able to refurbish after this time? Or when nothing else is possible, can we recycle the different components? Is that possible to separate the different types of plastics in here, and so on and so forth? Should we develop long life products? Should we rethink the business model, maybe deliver the function and not sell the toothbrush anymore? Could we have partnerships with dentists that will ensure a health smile for everybody using this product? Or what are the different ways that we can go about it? Lots of ideas, lots of different opportunities for every single product that we evaluate. And the idea now is by using this overall framework to divide you into different groups and to understand how we can further support this company today, but also how to provide you tools that will then be possible to apply in your specific companies to help you in the transition towards circular economy. So right now, before we leave for the break, you need to take a decision. You need to decide which one of the 3 different tracks you want to go for. We're going to have a very brief pitch by the different work package leaders, and I want to invite Maria to facilitate the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And now we have heard about our approach to circular economy, and you may feel very overwhelmed what it actually means to work within the context of circular economy, but what it also means how to make it more sustainable and more applicable to the business that you do out there. As Daniela mentioned, today in this session before the break, I'll introduce you to 3 work package leaders that will each come to the stage and introduce in details their work and then also the scope of the tryout sessions that you will be engaging with today. But before you listen to work package leaders, I would like to highlight that while listening to their pitches, try to make a decision what do you find interesting to work with during those tryout sessions. So as you can see, we have 3 tracks before right after the break, which means that I have only a limited amount of tickets available to give to you. So when listening to work package leaders, try to make your mind, and then right after we finish with all 3 pitches, come to me and then say what you wish to attend. And with that being said, I will start with introducing the microphone. It's not for the room, but for the movie. So we have that afterwards. Great. And as I mentioned, in round 1, we introduce you to work packages that work on sustainability screening. It's me, circular intelligent assets, Ivan and Jinyu, and then design of circular products, Sasha. Yes, so I'll start with presenting you to the sustainability screening work package 1. We have now heard a lot of circular economy. We have heard that you can do circular products. You can design them in a specific way to last longer or to be remanufactured at the end of use. We also heard that you can apply different circular strategies in your manufacturing or operations. What we also heard of is that you can redesign or transform your businesses to think of new ways of delivering values, like transforming the way you deliver products or their functions to your customers. What we also heard is as important to take care of the products at the end of their lives. So what do we do with the products that are no longer needed? How do we capture value of those? Therefore, many associate circular economy as being something that positively contributes to sustainability. But is it always the case? So when looking at this domain, how do you, as a decision maker in a company, how do you define or evaluate whether the circular economy strategy that you have in your company is good as it is or needs to be further improved? How do you decide which circular economy strategy is worth going for sustainability-wise, meaning how it will potentially contribute to the social, economic, and environmental domains? And then how do you monitor and measure to what extent has the implemented circular strategy actually contributed to sustainability? So the work package on sustainability screening proposes you to use a tool that contains a database of more than 300 key performance indicators that are defined as leading. Therefore, regardless whether you are a product designer, a operation engineer, environmental engineer, you can always navigate in the database and choose the key performance indicators that are applicable for the specific circular economy strategies, but are also highly relevant for your business area. Therefore, circular sustainability screening tool proposes you a database and corresponding guide where you find those KPIs. You also find how to navigate in the database and use the guidelines to select the circular economy strategies using the scanner, and then select your business area that you're mostly interested in. In today's workshop, we work on the case that Danielle presented of a toothbrush example, where we try to identify what circular strategies the company is trying to implement, what are the business areas or processes that are of interest, and what are the KPIs available to help measuring the sustainability performance of the circular economy strategies that are identified. And if you, as a real company, come to engage with Work Package 1, you get to work on your own cases. You can choose as many configurations as you wish to try out in the tool and identify what are those key performance indicators that can actually help you to measure the potential contribution of your solution to sustainability. Then, would you like to join? Come and try out. Thank you. Yes, Jinyu?
Hello, can you hear me?
It's only for the video,
Okay.
so the voice is...
Okay, my name is Steven Lee. The photo is my PhD student, is Ivan. So we are the two main players in this work package. So he's now presenting virtually, I'm now presenting physically. So in this work package, we basically want to work with companies in two parts. One is about helping companies to define their possible business by using digital technologies. We developed a framework, and the framework can help you to do a brainstorming internally in order to identify how you can use digital technologies, IoTs, and big data to try to combine with circular economy business models to create new businesses. So the first step is to help you to define the goal of your company. And after that, we hope that we can work with some companies closely as co-creation partners, so we can help you to analyze the data and to try to find out in details how the data you have or you should have can help you to materialize your business. So we have done a very comprehensive literature review of scientific articles and also papers from consulting companies to try to figure out what do we mean digital technology, what do we mean digitalization. And unfortunately, we found many definitions of IoT, many definitions of big data, and many definitions of digitalization. And I asked Ivan to make an abstraction, and he managed to make a very good abstraction of what we call digital technology framework. Here you can see there are three pyramids. On these left ones are the ones about data and knowledge. So you start with some data, and then you analyze it to get some knowledge, and then you analyze further to get some wisdom. The middle pyramid is about different ways of analyzing your data. You can do a descriptive analysis. Basically, you just know what is happening. You can do discovery analysis, trying to find out why things happen this way, why not happen the other way. And then you can also do a more comprehensive and complicated analysis to try to predict, based on your historical data, what may happen in the future. By doing this, you need to first collect data, you need to merge data, and then do analysis. So that is abstraction of the data and the digitalization technologies. Then how can this be combined with circular economy? So we invented this framework. Basically, it's a matrix. The rows are the different ways of analyzing data. To simplify it, we have only three levels of analysis, as mentioned. Descriptive, to identify what is happening. Discovery, to identify why. And predictive, or prescriptive, to find out what may happen in the future. And then you have three or more rows. Each row is one circular economy strategy that we have just presented. I use the maintenance, which is one typical circular economy strategy as example. So if you just do discrete analysis, meaning that you just know if anything goes wrong, then you go there and fix. And if you have more analysis, you may know, okay, you have some sensors on the heavy machine, sensors on the furnitures. You know, okay, now the condition is not good based on my previous experience. I know that something has to be fixed. And you can also do more comprehensive analysis to predict what may happen. So you can do maintenance way behind it fails. Way before it fails. So in this workshop, we are going to help you to be familiar with our framework. We will use this teeth brush to let you to think about how to install sensors, what kind of sensors can be installed on the teeth brush to make some digital business from it. Maybe you can have some ideas that you have never thought of. And we may also help you to think about how digital technologies can help your business in this workshop. So welcome.
Workshop that you want to participate for sure. This is about the product design. Imagine we talked about the toothbrush. Imagine you change the business model. Now you want to sell it to the hotels or rent it out to the hotels. Then it means that the usage of the toothbrush is now different. More people in a shorter time use the toothbrush. So the design is a little bit changed. You don't want to use the same sort of product for that purpose. So you need to change the design. So this, let me see. Yeah, that's a little bit. So this is the product development. Anyway, this is the product. Yeah, it was super hard, and yeah, this is the product development process that we choose in this project to work with. It's a very very generic product development. Of course, all of you that sits here and from the companies working with different product developments processes, it fits to that. So, but this is a very generic that we had to work. What we do in this work package is to include the circularity aspects within different stages of product development. Of course, the earlier that you consider or define your goal, the better. So we try to focus to include the circularity aspect in the very, very early stages of product development process. So as you can see, the product development process, this is a very, as I said, generic product development process. It's really complicated. Many functions are involved. Mainly manufacturing, design, and marketing, I put it here, but there are many other functions that are involved that have to make decisions, bring up facts, and do lots of documentation as well. So what we do in this process, in this work package, we go through all these processes, we go through all the documents, and we try to suggest where you have to consider what when it comes to circularity. As I said earlier, the better, but still you have to consider some sort of, you have to align the production with the product development as well. And then, based on and also you have to study the product that you already have so you can design the future products. So we go through your product development. Maybe this is the next slide. We go through the product development process of yours. We see what you are doing, what is your process. We map it based on this process. And then we also help you with different tools that already exist that you can use during your product development process and make your products more circular. So as I said, your product development process, your case, and then we go to the guidelines and strategies that exist or tools, and then we refine your product development process based on the purpose that you define in the business model. For this workshop for today, because the concept development is really important and it's in the very, very early stages of product development, we focus on concept development only. And for the sake of the product that we choose, we will have an open discussion about design for recycling and design for remanufacturing. You can call it refurbishment today. And design for remanufacturing and recycling. So we will have an open discussion. What would be the proper aspects to consider in the product development process. So that's it from me. Yeah, so there are 2 different guidelines for, extra. That was the Easter egg.
Great discussions. I can see you don't want to stop talking, and that's great. Now we have some time for sharing and reflections. I'm just going to take this odd timer from here. Yeah, and I want to go table by table to ask you what are your reflections from this very small trial of the 3 different areas. And maybe 1 or 2 candidates from each table to come and say what you think about it in terms of what are the key activities and insights that you have discussed and done, and what are the key takeaways to your company. Is that okay? Can we start with you, Sasha, in product design?
Yeah.
Somebody?
Okay, someone else, for example, we discuss.
I'd be happy to say something. This tool is a set of guidelines that if a person who already knows how to design a product, knows the process of how to design a product, here this person gets a set of guidelines that feeds into the different phases of a product development process. And if they are implemented, then bada bing, you not only have a product that fulfills all user requirements, but also a product that is easily remanufactured or recycled. We learned that when you develop a product, you should not only look at the first time a product is refurbished, but design a product that can be refurbished maybe 5 or 10 times, and then also think about what happens after that 5th or 6th time the product is refurbished. Then it's not possible to refurbish it anymore, but then we have to think about how to recycle the item. And in this item is difficult to recycle because it's very difficult to get the rubber part of the hard plastic part. So we thought about what to do with this. It's really difficult to reuse, even if you have a very high efficient machine that crushes the item into very small bits and pieces. It'll still be small bits and pieces where the rubber is glued onto the hard plastic, and so we cannot use either the plastic or the rubber. we can still burn it, but that kind of, then we're outside of the circular economy, right? So there has to be some sort of redesign of this product if it can be refurbished and manufactured many, many times.
I can give you a little bit more thanks, just a few more, and then we also discussed about the manufacturability of these products, that different aspects are really important. Almost, I would say, 90% of the aspects were covered by you guys. So about like ease of disassembly, modularity, the how easy it is for cleaning and repairing, and I mean in long term, durability of the product, simple design, the material that you use. These aspects are really important for remanufacturing. We discussed remanufacturing here, and a little bit of the other ones, but yeah. So we discussed that one, and yeah, that was it.
Maybe we should reflect a little bit on the legislation.
Yeah.
So if you do the product design, if you tie yourself up to a business model that are like you having swapping products in the next 10 years, if there's no regulation, you might have a big design challenge ahead of you. So you can't predict the future, but bear in mind that new legislation can be coming up. And that was your point.
Great. And takeaways for your own companies, something that you can use in your day-to-day activities?
So for me it was a lot of design for manufacturing and how we can, the level of the disassembling when we produce products.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. Should we go now to IoT digitalization? Jingu, an overview of the activities?
Yeah, we have divided into two groups, and I facilitate those 4 people, and Fanna facilitated this small group. So actually we have talked about how to use IoT to prolong the life of the battery and brush of the toothbrush. And also I think after that people get to know the basic ideas. Then we use 2 real cases from TikTok and also from Western. So maybe you can reflect some of the take-home message.
Yeah, sure. We have really low-tech products, and we don't necessarily believe that smart city is connected with technology, but at the same time we are looking into the area, and one example is our products get hit by cars, and the wood deteriorates in different spaces. It's very different if it's under a tree than if it's open space. We want to see if there are some sensors that can tell us if a product is hit or if it's in need of maintenance. How can we be alerted? And we also got into the discussion about the community and how they can give feedback. If we have an open line from the community, then they might also be more invested in the place if they can give feedback and have a communication with us.
Any more insights, takeaways from the group?
Well, we talked about something that we've titled enlightened timing, where so if you're trying to think of the battery and how you can prolong the battery but also use it in other smart applications, then maybe the first thing that you need to do is you need to be able to describe what's going on at the moment. So how long are you using your toothbrush for? How long is it on for? So that you don't use it beyond that and use more energy than required. So you need a sensor that tells you the time. But then maybe the next step would be you're trying to prolong the life of the battery. You need to understand more about how much to charge it in relation to the battery's current life cycle, right? Because the battery performance decreases over time. So you need to know more about where it sits in its life cycle. And then on the utmost level of the framework we talked about, but what if you then couple it with smart energy grids? Then you need to be able to do it in such a way that you know that when green energy is available, then it charges. But you need to do it in such a way, again, that you don't deteriorate the overall battery performance. Those are some of the things that we talked about.
Yeah, thank you. It might be a bit overkill to think about sensors and IoT into a toothbrush. We were discussing what product should we bring to those workshops. And when we were Googling, there are also lots of solutions available on IoT for toothbrushes that say what if you are not really doing well, and maybe that you should go to a dentist and things like that. So it's out there. You can Google and see. Thanks for that. Now, Maria and the sustainability screening. Overview of the activities first.
So what we have done is we consulted the case and their idea of circular solution. They're going to introduce to their toothbrush component. We also used the circular economy strategy to map what the idea is. And the idea was basically to restore the environment by recycling ocean waste or plastic, and then using it as a material for the toothbrush body. So we defined the idea of circularity for the company, and then we moved on to discussing, depending on who does the screening of sustainability, whether it's a product developer or a recycler, who may be also the supply chain actor who will source the material. You may need to take into consideration different aspects, and we also mapped what are those aspects and what they could be. Everything from the cost examples to energy during recycling, to toxicity of a new material, through end-of-life consideration, is it recyclable at the end of life. But what we also realized is that the brainstorm can go forever, and what the tool of sustainability screening can offer is a specific set of performance indicators that already contain those issues that one could measure to help making a decision. And then we could also see that none of the decision, meaning neither circular nor linear, were the best options. There are always trades-off, and then considerations: how can we further improve the idea, or can we drop the idea and do something else instead of going for recycled materials in here. Yes?
Right, thank you. Insights from the participants?
I think, yeah, I mean, from my perspective, it generates a lot of KPIs, which helps to bring awareness and to focus on avenues to make a decision, which is really good. But it also, in bringing a lot of KPIs, makes you recognise that there are so many considerations that actually you need to prioritise your questions pretty well before going into it. Because you could be forever and a day evaluating every single component, which is maybe of much overall lower impact. And so what I'm interested to explore further is how I take the fact of my business and go up at a much higher level to ask more corporate level questions of not just taking ocean plastics for your body, but using ocean plastics full stop throughout the entire business, or at a bigger level. Because I think what's good is the awareness, but the challenge is that it gives you so many KPIs that you can get lost in. And then we also had a good conversation about the relative value of being able to analyse those KPIs against brand value as well, because on some opportunity, on some initiatives, it may well cost you as a business financially to get it to market, but the rewards within your potential owner group and as a brand halo effect could be far exceeding that cost. So then the other sort of interesting question that we had was, can it also help us to help that business model, but that's
coming
a follow-up one.
We're waiting for that. Yeah, and I think that is a very important discussion. There are many people that take circular economy and sustainability as synonymous, but we know that there are many circular solutions that are not more sustainable. So it's important for us to see circular economy as a way to reach sustainability, and even more important, should take those considerations very early in the decision-making process to actually see if this specific circular solution is the way to go or not, from an environmental, a social, and an economic point of view. And that's the basic idea of this work package. Thank you so much for all of your reflections and insights. We're going to go to the break in a second. But before that, we are getting to marketing mode again. And it's time for us to pitch the 3 last work packages that we have in the second session. So I would invite you, Maria, to facilitate the discussion again. And then we are going to talk about business models, closing the loop, and also value chain.
Yes, thank you so much. And the procedure is basically as we had before. Now we will listen to 3 amazing work package leaders that will promote their work packages, namely on developing business models fit for circularity, closing the loop, and value chains. And the procedure is the same after each of the participants has presented their projects. You're welcome to pick up the ticket of the session you're most interested in attending, and then of course you're welcome to enjoy the break, which will last around 10 minutes. So let me switch to work package leaders, and the first one is on circular business models, Marina, followed by Jutta on closing the product cycles, and then by Fana on developing and partnerships, and then exploring circular value. Yes, Marina.
Great. So business models, and we already had some kind of introduction by Vestre here today of what we do in circular business models. So for us in the CIRCit project, designing a new business model for circular economy is about rethinking and reconfigure the logic of value generation in the company. The outmost objective, we are in circular economy space, so the outmost objective is fighting resource inefficiencies or systemic waste that our economy or how many businesses work, they sit on systemic waste. Why? Because it was for decades, it has been done like that. But maybe we could do things differently, and maybe we could find where are those systemic wastes and why the business is not delivering the value that it's supposed to be. Because maybe we have very long-lasting products, but they are not simply being have all that value monetized, because the way consumers or the society deals with those products. So the objective of this work package is as an outmost fighting systemic waste and aligning that with capturing value for the business and providing value for the stakeholders. Especially we look very closely to customer or end user point of view. There are many configurations that companies have already been playing with and trying to upscale. Some of those are based on selling services or selling results. So what these companies have found as waste or systemic inefficiencies that for some customers, and it's also systemic inefficient from a point of view of business, for some customers it's not their business, it's not their core to deal with light bulb and illumination projects. So large customers like airports, that is the case, and Philips is already running business on that area where they sell paperless contracts, and they have redesigned the products, they take back the products, the light bulbs or the lighting installations, they take back and they reuse everything because they are the ones delivering the final result, helping the airports to get the final result, illumination. Airports have to fly planes, not maintain everything lighted. So Philips helped them with that. And by doing that, they capture value in the efficiency of lighting, but also on the product itself, the light bulbs. Other types of configurations try to fight idleness of products. Some products that are very long life, like a bike or a car, there are so many of them out there not being used in full capacity. And maybe people, they don't need to own one car or own one bike, but only for certain clusters of users. They just need the mobility. So why not capturing and fighting those systemic inefficiencies with offering different types of business models that are based on access? Also, other types of systemic inefficiencies. We have so many products that are we use for shorter terms. So baby clothing, and we have Viga creating baby clothing at the right size per subscription. So we use baby clothing only for a very defined amount of time, and then we have to invest, and sometimes it doesn't even get passed along the family, or if you don't have other cousins or to pass it along, or siblings, then they have found a solution that is able to reduce up to 80% of resources. And also short-term usage of packaging. We have the Dansk Tour system working with that here as well, but this Repack found a solution for e-commerce of textile, and they've created this deposit system. So there's not a rule of what to do. It could be a totally result-oriented, charge per result, or it could be a buyback system. Both work, but you work depending on who you are dealing with and who you want to target. And that's what we try to discover in the work package too. So what we are providing is a process, and the process will guide the companies through all the steps of finding the opportunities. And there are many. When we dive deeper, we find maybe 4 or 5 and sometimes 10 or more than 10 opportunities. And then narrowing down the ones that are aligned with the strategy of the company, and going forward in fine-tuning a value proposition and the detailed business model concept or concepts, and then assessing them at a high level from an economic point of view and the resource efficiency potential point of view, or the point of view of how much can we find the systemic fight against the systemic inefficiency. And finally, planning the larger scale, how to go out there and experiment. So if you decide to or get curious about understanding how the tool works, or the tools work, we have a set of tools. The main one is a configurator that will help guide you through with decision making and several steps. If you decide to try it today, we're going to start from the beginning, from sensing new market opportunities for this toothbrush manufacturer. So I hope I got you interested, and hope to see you in the tryout session for WP2. Thank you very much. And I don't know how to use microphones.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now I try to find the right button this time. Yes. Next work package is about closing the loop, work package 5. I'm Jutta Hildenbrand, and I lead this work package from Sveria's part. Oh, RISE, sorry, still not getting used to this. Closing the loop. So this is really about what to do with products at the end of use. And we live in, we have found that in the Nordic countries, we live in societies that are actually quite wealthy. So people will not just use a product until it's completely rubbish. They will throw it out when they want another one. So there might be an inherent value, even if one person thinks that for their perspective it's waste. So that will come back at some point, and I would like to focus
on these parts. Now I'm not sure if this, no it's not. It does something unexpected happens. On the recirculation parts for parts and products, is it possible to take out components and parts and use them in another context? And we will start with this toothbrush, and even if Sasha just mentioned that it's completely impossible to do something about it, we will think about that again and try to be very creative in this aspect. But there's also, now it doesn't do what I want, now it does, the recirculation of materials and getting back the inherent material properties and use them in the same context or maybe in a different context if that's not possible. But this is also linked to this part actually where you restore, reduce and avoid, because then you have recycled materials and recyclable materials that you can use in the design of another product. So the closing the loop part is certainly not completely isolated, and it's linked to another work package in very much. And it has to be used in different contexts. So what we think is today not really possible, for instance, remanufacturing a product that's not designed for remanufacturing, that might be very much possible in the future. So we have to think about what is possible today, but also what is hopefully possible in the future. And one of the models that can explain whether a recycling or remanufacturing, reprocessing can be a good idea is based on the performance economy. Now I'm not sure about this thing, we'll see, where you look at this here, the utilization of stock, everything that has been produced so far, and some of you are here from companies that produce really nice products, and a lot of energy and thoughts and also materials have been used to create these products, and now the user doesn't want them anymore, and they have become part of the stock. And the idea of circular economy is that you find good ways to keep this value that has been created already. So reusing it or remanufacturing, I don't dare to use this anymore, I do, or reprocessing it can all be helpful to reduce this part here, the extraction and processing of virgin materials that is often comes with a high effort. So you have some benefits, but you also have to recollect all the materials and products, and you have to sort them maybe and test them and see whether they work as they should or not. So have to come to some balance. Here the decision context that I've already mentioned, existing products, everything that has been produced so far and that has comes as a burden maybe, but also as an opportunity. And what I would suggest is that we do a brainstorming, starting with the maybe in some aspects ridiculous, but in some ways also very inspiring toothbrush, and look at several areas that you can analyze and consider. You look at the feasibility, about technical process, whether they are available to close the loop, and also what efforts you have to take around that to implement the recirculation. And that includes not only technical process, even though it stands there, it's a technical process, but you also have to activate the owners to really give their products back. And then also about the organization and networks and the legal and frameworks that have been mentioned already. So this is what I would like to do, starting with the toothbrush. I'd also like to hear from you for products that you find more interesting, and sometimes you learn also from others' mistakes, so we can start that. And that's the work package 5. You're very welcome. And I think next one is from you.
Yes, last but not least, the ultimate workshop of this afternoon is on the design and development of circular value chains. Really, the starting point of this work package is that no company, big or small, can create an entirely circular value chain in their own right. Currently, value chains are changed for a reason, because different actors in that chain fulfill different roles, they have different capacities, have different type of knowledge. So how do you use those different roles and those different capacities to create circular value chains? In the tryout for this work package, I want to do two things. The first thing that I want to do is provide some inspiration, and I want to talk about a few company cases with you. The first case that I want to talk about is the case of Riversimple. This is a company that manufactures cars, but not in the traditional sense. So really what these guys are trying to do is to rethink what we think of as the traditional relationships in value chains, both with their customers, but also upstream with their suppliers. The second example that I want to talk about is the collaboration between Ford and Heinz, and how this very unlikely or counterintuitive collaboration of two new partners that weren't in each other's value chain before have now started to work together to create value for both of them. The third example that I want to talk about is the case of Bakers Basco, and I want to use this example to talk about how the creation of new entities, how different companies can come together and create a new company to facilitate circular strategies as well. What I want to do next is talk a bit about the process. What are the steps that you are taking when you're designing circular value chains? Because first of all, you as a main stakeholder need to decide where are opportunities for closing the loop and where this is in your interest to do so. So what is your motivation? Next, you need to understand who are the current value chain stakeholders that are there and what are their interests, but also what else might they be interested in and where do those interests align with your own interests for the circular solutions that you are trying to create. And next, as I talked about just now, where are new partnerships or the creation of new entities required, because maybe not all capabilities or all knowledge is present in your current value chain. So what other options do you need to look at? What other collaborations could bring value to you and others? And how do you make that a sustainable proposition for those organizations also? So if you're interested in either those cases or in the process, then we can have a little taster of what that could look like for the case of an electric toothbrush manufacturer. So come and join me.
You see, it's all about having the right tools. I didn't have it before, it was difficult to hear me. So now we have. Okay, should we sum up for the discussions? Now we are just going to follow exactly the same format as before, sharing and reflections, main activities and takeaways for you. Could we start with you, Marina, and the business model?
So we had first an explanation of how the process for sensing opportunities work, and then in two groups we had an ideation with how to find some of the identified or understood systemic deficiencies and needs from customers, and some ideas that each group brought. They're very diverse, which might also be related to the different prompts or the different cards or the different configurations as possible. But many were put in place, and then they started sharing and building on top of each other. And in the end, we finished with how we select the ones, because many could be possible, but that would depend very much on the strategy of the company and what segment to start with, or in a larger part of where the money is, or in a smaller part that might be where the money will be in 5 years and so forth. And that was it.
Thank you. Insights and takeaways from the participants?
I can say that we also had the same discussion here, that in that part of the table, that we went through different ideas about the electric toothbrush. Actually, we were like controversial ideas, so some people were saying we have to go low tech, and the other people were saying no, we have to go high tech even. So that was really interesting to see how different people think. So we also found lots of ideas that we tried to put them on the map.
And that's often the initial stage when developing new business models, looking into the world and trying to see what are the opportunities. Then we, of course, need to see what's the business case into it and how we can realize the different opportunities, and that comes in the next steps of the work package. Thank you very much for that. Should we go now to Fenna and value chains?
Show you what we made. So, well, first we talked about the 3 inspirational cases, as I promised. We switched modes and talked about the process, and we had a bit of a taster of one of the tools that I'm using in the process. And it's a value mapping tool where for the different stakeholder groups we're looking into what value is captured, what value is missed or destroyed, and what value surplus or absence might be there, and how that can be translated into value opportunities. And then next we can look as a company from the strategy that we've identified, and in this case we've looked at capturing the end-of-life value of the materials that are in there, right? Because there's a battery in there, and there's a motor in there, there's lots of valuable metals in there. How can we create a return system that allows us to do that? And then we use that as a lens. Okay, what opportunities do we see here that allow us to also do this? Where are those interests aligned? And that is the first step to then creating an alternative value chain configuration.
Thank you. Insights and takeaways from the participants? I know it's very late. We are almost leaving to drink something. Please.
But then I just want to say,
yes,
it's a great like can opener. It's pretty simple. Maybe one of the most simpler things I met today, and also the facilitating process was well done. So, but it was like a can opener for good ideas.
Yeah.
So first I was thinking that, well, that's pretty simple, but things came out of it, predictable and unpredictable around the table. So it was both fun and a rewarding process.
Yeah. Thank you. Good. Now towards closing the loops to close the day.
Yes, we had a very open brainstorming about this toothbrush, and most of the ideas that we generated were not really related to closing the loop in the beginning. So we think that the product is not very valuable. We were quite clear about that. But then we started thinking about, now we have this product and it's coming back in large amounts, and now we have to do something about it. And then we did came up with some nice ideas, and we came over the initial barrier saying, it's not possible, you just burn it and then you're done. So there's even today are a lot of options open there. I suggest that you before starting saying this is not possible, you go through these areas to analyze and consider and check the feasibility of the closing the loop process, and also check what is the viability, what have you done, do you have to do, and go into organization and legislation as a framework to understand how can it be done. And I learned a lot, as always, in these workshops, and maybe some of them also.
Yeah, insights, takeaways.
We did have a quick discussion about would we purchase a toothbrush if remanufactured. And I think the left-hand side of this table will say we don't want to purchase a remanufactured toothbrush because it's been in another person's bathroom. So it doesn't really matter whether it says guaranteed, clean, blah blah blah. I don't think so.
Yeah.
So instead, perhaps think about a company like this should think about designing it for easy recycling, so that it will go into the recycling loop immediately. We thought about, well, okay, let's say that the company produces a version which is made out of metal all the way around, and then you buy it at a low cost price from the manufacturer, but then you have to return it. Then the manufacturer gets it back and cleans it, and it's easily cleaned because it's all metal, but it's still a toothbrush that has been in another person's bathroom. So that problem is not being solved by a different material or something like that. And Jutta mentioned, well, you can clean it very efficiently, and I absolutely agree, but we also thought about the table that it's a feeling that it's difficult to overcome. And then we discussed whether we need to push our boundaries. And I think that's a good discussion as well, that may not happen overnight. So.
Kristen?
Just a reflection on that. If you go to the dentist, try to look at where the tools are positioned. All the tools, you'll have them in your mouth. They use it as instruments. There are very different versions of those in terms of hygiene and stuff. So that's already another area where you're kind of, So please look at that next time. I just want to share a little thing. So we got this paper, and up at the top corner there's something to analyze for closing the loop. It's called feasibility. Is there any technical process available to close the loop? So I'm just going to highlight a startup from DTU that is called Trebo. They build a business model where they receive plastic granulates or plastic leftovers from production sites, and they sort it and give it back. And the quality of the plastic, the quality of the plastics are very high, almost 100%, so 98% or something for the quality of the material. So there's a possibility, if they want to shred it and sort it, they could go to Trebo.
It's post-industrial, right?
And it's, yes. No, it's for business. Business to business. Yeah, and there's advanced processes, as I learned, for infrared, that you build a technical machine that can sort it, but there's also other options that are way cheaper, and let another stakeholder in your network take the task.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I think it was very interesting reflections. Two stories, actually, to reflect on what you have just said. The first one is, who here would buy a remanufactured towel? Bath towel. Many of you. And that's the same idea of having other people using that, right? Every time you go in a hotel, that's basically what you are doing. You are, well, you don't put it in your mouth, but right? And the other story, we are working with the Green Fiber Bottle project together with Carlsberg to design a beer bottle that is biodegradable. And the idea from an end-of-life point of view is that we first of all would recycle, but if the bottle ends up in nature, then that would biodegrade, right? We did an experiment here at DTU to understand people behavior, what they do when they know that the bottle is biodegradable. So we had the same type of bottle, exactly same shape, exactly same form, exactly same material. We just have different labels in the bottles. The first label said it is biodegradable. The second label said it's recyclable. The third label didn't say anything. There was no label. What do you think that happened with the biodegradable bottle? People just litter. They don't even consider giving that back for recycling. That was the first alternative, right? So we also need to take care about what we communicate, how we communicate, and what's the behavior that people are going to have on the basis of that. We can have the best intentions in the world to recycle, to biodegrade, and so forth. But if the users don't understand that, they don't see how it can contribute, then it's a big drawback or a rebound effect, as we would call. Okay, it's time to close the day now. Thank you so much for your very active participation in the different workshops. Before we leave and we have some drinks waiting for us outside, I just want to highlight what are the opportunities to further work together. So today was really only a very small taste of different topics and different tools that we are using. But the good news is that we have the opportunity to go much more into details into those collaborations. And we basically have two ways to collaborate with companies in the project, as Ching mentioned in the beginning of the day. The first one is co-creation companies that will basically work together with us to co-develop the different tools. And we have about 15 companies in total to be engaged into that. Not so many places left, but I'm going to give you an overview in a second of what work packages are still open for co-creation partners. And then we also have the validation partners, and that's 50 companies in total in the 5 Nordic countries, where you're going to have the chance to try out the tools and then give us feedback on how the tools are working in your context, in your organization. So a little bit of more details about the two models. Co-creation companies, it's where we really get the chance to work together. The idea is that you can influence the development of the tools, so we do it in a very collaborative way, and you also get full support for implementation. One thing that is very important there is that co-creation company needs to engage in at least 2 work packages at the same time. And that's to ensure, I'm sure you discussed that in the tables today, how linked the different topics are and how important it is to have a holistic perspective in terms of circular economy implementation. What you get and what you give. So in that case, you have access to one of us or many of us in your site for 2 to 6 months to really work together in implementing circular economy. You, of course, have access to the tools as they are today, but also to the final version by the end of the project. And you also have the guidelines and also the chance to network with companies. We are often carrying out those workshops, and we put companies in contact with each other in relation to the work package they are working together as well. And then what you give, so it's also important that you invest time in the project. So it's about 200 hours per work package, and that you bring people in your company that will also be important to be engaged into those discussions. But our time is paid for, so you don't need to pay anything for our engagement in the project. The next model is the validation partners. And the idea here is that you will be able to try out the final version of the tools. You'll also be able to hear about the project and what's going on, and have more overall networking without a clear facilitation from us, but in events like that. What you get the tools, the guidelines, you can get workshops, and then 1-2 hours question and answers with us in terms of the work package leaders to get some guidance, to clarify some questions and so forth. And you need to give feedback to us on how was the experience in using the tool. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? What could be better? And so on and so forth. So about 20 to 40 hours. It's a very low engagement compared to the other model. And we also want to hear from you success factors for actually implementing the tools in your day-to-day activities. And then again, we're going to have about 50 companies in the 5 countries as a second validation. I was going to say second tier. That was our previous name for that, at validation companies. And here are the possibilities. So you can see here the overview of the different work packages and the availabilities that we have for co-creation in the second column, and also for validation in the third column. You are welcome to contact us, and especially Fena. That's Fena's email that you can see in the contact out there. If you want to hear more about it, if you want to know more details about the different work packages, and if you want to explore collaboration opportunities, just get back to us and we can get the conversations going. Do you have any questions, thoughts, comments, observations before we have a drink?
I have a short comment.
Yeah.
So you were a bit frightened about the 100 hours and how well enforced this would be, and if it's really a major issue or anything like that. But our experience is actually that it's really a smooth and interactive process, and it's not really about counting every minute of every hour, but it's about getting the sufficient investment from the company as well. So it might sound a bit frightening, but it's not in our experience.
Thank you. And I have 2 comments before we go. You know, we are in a circular economy conference, and we want get back those so we can reuse. So I'm gonna place this box out there. Just put that inside, and we'll make sure to reuse the highest value from a circular economy point of view, right? We still don't need to recycle that for now. And the other comment is that we were ordering the catering, and then we had to make a decision. They said, we don't have wine glasses. You can either use the ones that you have in there, or you can take plastic wine glasses. Like, okay, what should we do? What should we do? Then we talk to Maria. Where is Maria? Yeah. Then we look into the KPIs and say, how do we decide what to do? So yeah, we are gonna drink wine into those glasses, guys. But remember, it's from a circular perspective. So thank you so much for today. We have drinks and wine and small snacks outside. Take the time to mingle and to talk to each other. And we hope to see each other again very soon. Thank you so much. Yeah, and just another small comment to mention, we have another event happening here in a few minutes. So just take your stuff with you when you leave, and then we can mingle outside.